Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Always fun to be back.
So this time we're going to be exploring Chapter 9 of Don't Believe Everything You Think.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about goals, dreams, and ambitions, particularly as we learn to quiet our minds.
Right.
And this is a really fascinating chapter because it brings up a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
The author actually suggests that overthinking can really get in the way of achieving our goals.
Interesting.
So I'm really excited to dig into that with you.
Yeah, me too.
And he actually shares this really fascinating Zen story to illustrate this point.
Okay.
So we'll get to that later, but first I want to talk about the two types of goals that he outlines in this chapter.
Sounds good.
So right off the bat, he asks us to consider what motivates us.
Okay.
Is it inspiration?
Right.
Or is it desperation?
Yeah.
He actually makes a distinction between what he calls inspiration goals and desperation goals.
Uh-huh.
And understanding this difference is really crucial when it comes to achieving what we want in life.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get caught up in wanting something without really examining why they want it.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is that he says it's not even necessarily about the goal itself.
Oh, interesting.
So it's not about, whether it's money or a promotion or creative success.
It's about the energy driving it.
Yes, it's about where that desire is actually coming from.
Okay, I like that.
So it's not about what you want. It's about why you want it. So can you give us an example?
Sure. Let's say you want to quit your job.
Okay. Probably common one.
Yeah, so a desperation goal would be quitting just to escape. Like running away from stress or boredom.
Right. Just to get out of a situation that you don't like.
Exactly. But an inspiration goal would be quitting because you're excited to pursue something that you truly love.
Okay. So there's a positive reason behind it.
Exactly. Something that really aligns with your values,
Hmm.
and it feels expansive rather than constricted.
Yeah. I love that distinction.
Like you're moving towards something that feels really good rather than just away from something that feels bad.
It's like if your goals were a compass, desperation is pointing you away from what you don't want,
Okay.
while inspiration is guiding you towards what truly excites you.
I love that.
I think that's a really helpful visual.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that would apply to so many different areas of life.
Absolutely. And I think we can all relate to that in some way. I know I've definitely been guilty of setting desperation goals in the past.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Me too.
And I think that's what makes this conversation so important is, becoming aware of that dynamic
Absolutely.
and really starting to question those motivations behind our goals.
Totally. And here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay, lay it on me.
Nguyen actually argues that overthinking can trap us in that desperation cycle.
So, we actually create our own desperation.
We actually create our own desperation.
In a way, yeah. It's
Yeah.
like our thoughts become a dam blocking the river of inspiration.
Oh, wow. I love that metaphor.
So we have all this creative potential inside of us.
Yeah.
Like a wellspring.
Exactly. But then our doubts and anxieties come in.
And they block it all up.
They build a wall and prevent those ideas from flowing freely.
Oh, man. I've been there so many times.
I think we all have.
Yeah, I remember once I had this really amazing idea for a screenplay.
Uh-huh.
But I got so caught up in overthinking everything.
Like what?
Oh, the usual suspects. What if it's not good enough?
Oh, yeah.
What if no one wants to produce it? What if I waste all this time and energy on something that goes nowhere?
Right, right.
And I basically talked myself out of even starting.
It's so easy to do.
It's crazy how powerful our own minds can be in that way.
It really is. And that's a perfect example of how we can sabotage ourselves.
Yeah.
And it brings us to this really powerful concept that Nguyen explores the power of non-thinking.
Okay, now hold on.
Yeah.
Before anyone starts freaking out thinking they should just quit their jobs and wander around aimlessly.
Right, exactly.
He's not saying we should have NO goals.
No, not at all. It's not about having no goals.
So what is it about?
It's about allowing those goals to come from a deeper place.
Okay, from inspiration rather than desperation.
Exactly. It's about aligning with goals that feel genuinely exciting and fulfilling.
Not driven by fear.
Exactly, not fueled by that sense of lack or scarcity.
Right, because when you're coming from that place of fear, it's like you're always chasing something that you feel like you don't have.
Yes, and you're never quite satisfied.
You're always trying to fill that void.
Exactly, and that's what Nguyen is really challenging us to look at.
To question that underlying belief that we're somehow incomplete or lacking.
Exactly, and to start shifting our focus to what already feels whole and abundant within us.
Yeah, and then allowing our goals to flow from that place of wholeness.
Beautiful, and to help us get there, he poses this really thought-provoking question.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
He asks, if I had infinite money already traveled, the world had no fear and didn't receive any recognition for what I do, what would I do or what would I create?
Wow, that's a powerful question.
It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. And it's such a good way to strip away all those external pressures and expectations.
Yes, to get to the heart of what truly matters to you.
Like, what would you do purely for the joy of doing it?
Exactly. What lights you up? What makes you come alive?
And I think when we can start to tap into that, that's when our goals really start to align with our deepest passions and purpose.
It's like we're finally getting out of our own way and allowing our true potential to shine through.
And I think that's a perfect segue into the next concept he introduces, which is unconditional creation.
Ooh, yes, this is a good one.
This is where things get really interesting.
Tell me more.
So unconditional creation is all about creating purely for the joy of it, not for external rewards or validation.
So it's like doing something just for the love of it.
Exactly. And he gives all these amazing examples of artists and musicians and writers who create even if they don't get paid or recognized.
Oh, wow, that's inspiring.
Like he talks about painters who paint even if their work is never seen. Dancers who dance even if they never take the stage. Writers who write even if they never publish a single word.
They're creating just for the pure act of creation.
Exactly. And it's that pure joy that fuels them.
It's like their creativity is flowing from a source that's independent of any external validation.
Exactly. And it's so powerful to witness.
Yeah, it really is. Now think about your own life for a moment.
Okay.
What's something you love doing just for the fun of it without any expectation of reward or recognition?
That's a great question.
Take a moment to really consider it.
For me, it's definitely playing music.
Ah, a fellow musician.
I could spend hours jamming on my guitar, even if no one else ever heard it.
Yeah, I get that.
It just brings me so much joy.
And that's the kind of energy we want to tap into when we think about our goals.
Right. It's like bringing that same sense of playfulness and passion to everything we do.
Exactly. How can you bring more of that joyful, unconditional energy into your pursuits?
It's like shifting from I have to achieve this to I get to experience this.
Yes, exactly. It changes the whole game.
Totally. And it brings us to that Zen story we promised to share.
Oh, yes. I'm eager to hear this one.
It's a good one, so buckle up.
Okay, I'm ready. All right, so before we get to the story, I think it's helpful to talk a little bit about Zen philosophy in general.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
You know, it's all about finding that inner peace
Right.
rather than seeking it from outside circumstances.
That makes sense.
It's recognizing that true happiness comes from within.
Not from achieving some external goal.
Right, exactly. Not from getting some external validation. So Nguyen emphasizes quieting the mind.
Yeah, to access this deeper wisdom.
Exactly. It's about letting go of all those thoughts.
The ones that keep us trapped.
Yeah, in that cycle of striving and dissatisfaction.
Oh, I know that cycle well.
I think we all do.
Yeah.
So it's really about, recognizing when our thinking is actually helpful versus when it's actually holding us back.
Okay, so like becoming aware of when our thoughts are actually working against us.
Yes, exactly. It's like learning to discern.
Between the thoughts that are guiding us and those that are just creating noise and confusion.
Yeah. And once we can start to do that, we can start to become aware of when we're creating those desperation goals.
Okay, the ones fueled by fear and scarcity.
Exactly. And then we can gently, shift our energy.
Towards inspiration.
Yes, towards that sense of abundance and joy that comes with pursuing something we truly love.
So it's almost like choosing to run towards something exciting.
Yeah.
Rather than away from something that we're afraid of.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean, ignoring our fears.
Or pretending they don't exist.
Right. It's more about acknowledging them.
But not letting them dictate our action.
Exactly. It's about letting go of that need to control every outcome.
No, that's a tough one.
I know, right? We love to be in control.
We like to think we have it all figured out.
But as Nguyen points out, trying to figure it all out often leads to more overthinking.
And more stress.
And ultimately less fulfillment.
So it's kind of a paradox. The more we try to control, the less control we actually have.
Yeah.
So practically speaking, how do we start to cultivate this non-thinking state?
Well, that's the beauty of it.
Okay.
It's not about
drastic changes.
Yeah, or rigid practices or anything like that.
So it's not like we all need to become Zen masters and meditate for hours on end.
Not at all. It's really about those small intentional shifts in our awareness.
Okay, so what are some things we can start doing?
Well, one thing Nguyen suggests is just becoming aware of our thinking patterns.
Okay.
So just notice when you're spiraling.
Into negativity or doubt?
Yeah, exactly. And just observe those thoughts without judgment.
Okay, so just noticing them.
Exactly, just becoming the observer. And from there, you can start experimenting with different techniques to create more space.
For non-thinking.
Yeah.
So like what kind of techniques?
Well, meditation can be incredibly powerful even for just a few minutes a day.
Okay.
There are also mindfulness practices like focusing on your breath.
Right. Or paying attention to the sensations in your body.
Exactly. It sounds so simple.
But I bet it takes practice.
It does.
To really stay present in the moment.
It really does. But there are other ways to cultivate mindfulness too.
Oh yeah. Like what?
Taking a walk in nature.
Okay.
Listening to calming music.
Right.
Spending time with loved ones. Anything that helps you connect with the present moment.
So it's about finding what works for you.
Exactly. And Nguyen also talks about the importance of creating an environment
that supports non-thinking.
Right. So that might mean decluttering your physical space.
Okay.
Limiting exposure to negativity in the news or on social media.
Being intentional with the energy we allow into our space.
Exactly. Both physically and mentally.
Okay. So now for the big question.
Okay.
For those of us who are super goal-oriented.
Yeah.
And I'll admit, I'm definitely in that camp.
Me too.
How do we balance this idea of non-thinking with our desire to still achieve those big dreams?
Yes, the million-dollar question.
Because it seems like those two things are kind of at odds with each other.
Well, not necessarily.
Okay, so how do we reconcile them?
That's where the magic happens.
All right, tell me more.
Remember, Nguyen isn't saying we should abandon our goals altogether.
Right.
It's about shifting the energy behind them.
Okay, so instead of white-knuckling our way to success.
Yeah, fueled by desperation. We can tap into that flow state.
That sense of inspiration and ease.
Exactly, and allow that to guide us towards our goals.
So it's about finding that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Where we're still ambitious and driven. But we're not attached to the outcome.
Right, we're enjoying the journey.
And trusting that the universe has our back.
Exactly. So it all comes back to that difference.
Between desperation goals and inspiration goals.
Yes. A huge part of this is being honest with ourselves.
About why we're pursuing certain goals.
Exactly. Are we trying to prove something?
Are we trying to escape something?
Or are we genuinely excited about the journey itself?
Even if the outcome is uncertain?
Exactly, because ultimately, that's where the true fulfillment lies.
It's like asking, what kind of work would truly light me up?
Yeah.
What skills do I want to develop? What kind of impact do I want to have in the world?
Exactly. It's about shifting that focus from external validation
to intrinsic motivation.
Yeah. And when you do that, it can totally transform your experience.
Even if the goal itself remains the same.
Exactly.
It's like running a marathon.
Okay.
But instead of feeling like you're dragging yourself through every mile, you're actually, enjoying the scenery.
Yeah.
The challenge, the company of the other runners.
Yeah. It becomes more about the experience.
Yes. And that's what Nguyen's message is all about.
Okay.
Finding that sense of joy and fulfillment in the journey.
Right. Not just the destination.
Not just the end goal.
Yeah. He reminds us that we don't have to force it.
We don't have to struggle.
Right. We just have to get out of our own way.
And allow that wisdom within to guide us.
I love that.
And speaking of getting out of our own way. What about that Zen story?
Oh, yes. Let's hear it.
All right. So picture this.
Okay.
There's this monk who keeps getting frustrated during meditation. There's always something disturbing his peace.
Like what?
People talking, animals scurrying, even the wind rustling the leaves.
Oh, wow.
So he's like, I need some quiet time.
Yeah.
He decides to go out on a lake in a boat.
Okay.
Figuring no one will bother him out there.
Makes sense.
At first, it's blissful.
Yeah.
Total silence, pure tranquility.
But
then, bam, another boat comes crashing into him.
Oh, no.
Right. He's furious.
Yeah.
Yelling, who's there? But as he gets closer to the other boat, he realizes it's empty.
Oh, wow. So there's no one to blame.
Exactly.
But himself and his own reactions.
It's such a brilliant story.
It is.
Because it illustrates how we create our own suffering.
Through our reactions.
Not the circumstances themselves.
You get so caught up in the story we're telling ourselves.
Exactly. And if we connect this back to the idea of goals, it makes you wonder, how often do we create our own obstacles?
With our own thinking.
Yeah, with all that overthinking.
Like we're constantly crashing into these empty boats.
Problems that only exist in our minds.
It's a humbling thought.
It is.
But also empowering.
Because it means we have the power to change it.
Exactly. If we can learn to quiet those reactive thoughts,
Let go of the need to control.
then we create space for something much greater to emerge.
So instead of obsessing over every detail,
And every potential obstacle.
yeah, what if we focused on aligning with our inspiration goals?
Yes, and cultivating that sense of joy and ease in the process.
That's the key.
That's what Nguyen is inviting us to do.
To trust that the river of inspiration will flow.
If we just remove the dam of overthinking.
It's about shifting from a mindset of scarcity and fear
To a mindset of abundance and possibility.
It's about remembering that we are not our thoughts.
We are the awareness behind the thoughts.
And we have the power to choose which thoughts we give energy to.
Beautifully said.
So on that note, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought to ponder this week.
Okay.
Take a look at the goals that you're pursuing.
Yeah.
Is there one that feels heavy?
Like it's coming from that place of desperation.
What would it take to shift that energy towards inspiration?
Or maybe even let go of the goal entirely if it's not truly serving you.
That might be the most liberating decision you make.
It could be.
So as always, we'd love to hear your reflections on this.
Yeah.
Share your thoughts, your insights, or even your own empty boat stories with us on social media.
We love hearing from you.
Until next time, fellow deep divers, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Thanks for listening. Did you enjoy what you heard? Want to buy this book? Please use the link in the description to support the channel.